what I've seen is that we've got probably the sickest group of individuals that I've seen where people are suffering from things that should not be if they're following the health message. If they're following what? The 8 laws of health, right? And so if that was actually something that was happening, there'll be less people that would be sick. I'm not saying it would banish it altogether, but I said it would be less people that would be inclined to be sick, right? So, okay. So, the other things that impact mental health is physical. Like, so if you have a physical ailment, I should say, if you have emotional issues, can that impact on your health? How? She has mic. Somebody has mic. Can give her? Yes. Right here.
Mentally, it once it gets into your brain and your body, it affects the whole system.
How does it affect the system? In what ways? Give me like 1 or 2 things
get
that.
depressed, the person get depressed and very angry,
Right.
and upset over everything.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And so people who have heart issues have been known, people who have emotional issues that impact their heart, because they're holding on to things. They won't let go. That forgiving spirit that sometimes people have, that they don't forgive. They're right in your church and they're mad and they're not talking to the person because they are unforgiving of, oh, I forgive them, but then when you see them, you're walking on that side of the church, right? It's not forgiveness. It's just that you're avoiding the person and the situation. Yes. Mm-hmm. Hold on. You have something important to say, so I'm going to walk over to you for you to speak.
No, I said, when we get into that bracket, is not the person that we are avoiding that is sick. Is like it's me that is sick. I'm trying to ignore you, and it is affecting me mentally, physically, and psychologically.
Very well said. So absolutely. So, avoiding a situation does not eliminate the situation. It eats at you. It may not be manifest outwardly, but inwardly, it's eating you up. So, it's important to be able to resolve those conflicts that people have. I'm sure this church, being a big church, and Kendall's very forward thinking, that you guys have probably done some things on communication. We just finished a series at my church at Mount Sinai by one of the other mental health therapists there that was very well done. And she had on the first or second Sabbath, I think it's second Sabbath because I'm missing today, the last one that they're having, and talking about communication. Sometimes it's not always with the communication that someone has said something, and it could be because of what you're feeling or something that was unresolved, that you're reactive to it, not necessarily what the person said. But then we walk away without clarification and having those feelings and feeling the way we feel instead of stopping and saying, hey, I'm not sure what that meant, but this is what I'm hearing you say. Is that what you meant? By simply saying that could resolve the whole thing. Instead of 2-3 years go by and you're not talking to the person. Could have been resolved. Okay, so I think it went up. Okay, awesome. All right, we're going to start at, I think, is that the first slide?
Do you have the clicker?
No. Okay, I think it's, go back a little bit more. Okay, so, all right. All right, so I'm talking about embracing hope in the season. So when I say the season, I kind of played on the words. So this season could be this season that we're in. People tend to get depressed and anxious and all of that, but it could be the season that you're in personally, okay? So that season can mean anything. If you're not someone that get depressed during the holidays, fine. But it could be the season. If you're in the season right now that you need hope, and because of what you're going through, whatever mental health issues, then it's still for you. Okay? All right. Thank you for the IT individuals that was helping. I appreciate that. Okay. And so we can go to the next slide, because I don't have the clicker. Okay. So some of the things that, oh, go back one, I'm sorry. Go back one. So some of the things that we talked about, we have grief, we have stigma, right? Worry, genetics. Sometimes people become ill because of genetics. Phobia, we have self-harm, post-traumatic stress. That's been a big thing now. Today is Veteran Day. We know that individuals who are veterans often come back with that diagnosis and left untreated for many, many years or never treated. And also, pandemic has put people in PTSD. All right, so you have a lot of different, you have anorexia. It's something that we don't talk about, but it's not just young ladies and that suffers from anorexia. Sometimes boys do too, but it's not talked about. Thank you so much. So we have, what is mental health? I don't know if anyone could see that. So mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood, adolescence, to adulthood. So it impacts everyone at every age. Okay, so what is the cause of mental health issues? Sometimes family history of mental health problems, life, like biological factors such as genetic or brain chemistry, experiences such as trauma or abuse. We're going to talk a little bit about trauma because that's something that is also kind of coming off of pandemic, that, and also studies are finding that childhood trauma is impacting individuals as they become adults. Environmental, other stresses like death, difficult relationship, financial problem, and major changes in life is considered under mental health. Okay. All right, so we know that there's treatment for depression. Do you know that 1 out of 5 individuals in New York City suffer some form of mental health issues? That's a lot when you think about 1 out of 5. And not everyone is getting treatment. I think now that pandemic, people are more embracing mental health. It's not such stigmatized, but it still is in a way. The younger ones, they call them the Zen or the millennials, yeah. That's like a in thing for them. I have a godson that's like 34, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna see my therapist. And then people are like, oh, it's like this big, oh, my therapist is my therapist. And I'm like, oh, okay, And I've had some people that they'll tell me, oh, yeah, we told our friends about you, and they want to come see you. And they're like, oh, yeah, we told them that we have a therapist. It's like, okay, so people are more embracing it now than ever, but it's still some stigma to it. And I would love to see the day where it's as normal as going to the doctor for high blood pressure or diabetes or something other physical ailments. Okay, so we have depression. What does the signs? What are some of the signs and symptoms? And I didn't realize you guys projector is so far back. So even with my glasses, I can't see that. So
Monica is in front of you too.
yeah, that's even smaller. Hold on, I'm trying to see if I can open that up on my computer. And this way I'll be able to see that clearer. All right, so I can see that now here. All right, so there's some of the signs and symptoms. I'm just going to go over it a little briefly. You probably know most of them. Any kind of prolonged sadness or unexplained crying spells. Some of the signs and symptoms, this is according to the diagnostic manual that they have that governs both mental and physical. So people who are irritable, angry, worry, agitation, anxiety, and we're not talking about just, run the mill, because that's normal. I think there's a normal, healthy amount of anxiety that people have, worry, concerns, and but when these things impact your day-to-day functioning, that's when it becomes a problem. Someone that's lack of energy, persistent, very lethargic, feeling of guilt and worthlessness, inability to concentrate, indecisiveness, inability to take pleasure in former interests, social withdrawals, unexplained aches and pains sometimes could be a form of depression, recurrent thoughts of death or suicide. So these are just some things to keep in mind. And I wish some of the young people were here. I won't go over all of this, but I'll just go through a little bit of it. So there's some effects for depression for the teenagers, usually when you see that they're having problems in school, if they're running away, if they're doing drugs and alcohol, low self-esteem, social media abuse, like that's all they want to do is that. You kind of a red flag, high-risk behavior, and also violence. So any of you that are parents or have daughters or sons that are parents, kids that are parents, or grandkids, just keep an eye on that. That's just something to keep on the back of your mind.
My question is that this sounds like a regular teenager. This is every day.
Right.
This is not unusual behavior per se. And I'm wondering if this child, this teenager, acts out in school, what would be the result if, in fact, they're not able to control or maintain some kind of level of control within the classroom? What would happen to a teenager if, in fact, these issues are not addressed? They're observed, they're not addressed, they act out, it happens in school, what happens?
So if that's a situation where they're acting out and it's not being addressed, they can become more depressed and socially isolated, where they're not interacting with friends, and they become just like a loner, and that impacts their ability as they're getting older too, because if they're going to isolate and they're not talking to people and they're not wanting to interact with people, how do they become functional people in society? That becomes a problem. So here's what I'm hoping, that if these are behaviors that parents are seeing with their teenagers at home, I would hope that you would have established a relationship with the kids, with your teenagers or youths from early on, because if you try to do that when they're now teenagers going into entering into adulthood or pre-adulthood, it's going to be hard to engage them because you didn't establish that relationship earlier. And if you're not paying attention, you're not going to see those things, you're not going to address those things, and you're not, I don't want to say you're failing as a parent, but you're not doing service to your children if you're not paying attention to the things that's needed when they're growing up and being in tune and said, that's not like my child. I need to see what's going on. I need to engage them. I need to find out what's going on with them. So I would hope that people are doing that and paying attention to that and having a relationship with your children, because trying to do that now that they're in 9th, 10th, 11th grade, it's not impossible. It becomes very daunting and challenging.
What does the school do about it?
The schools, a lot of times, what they do is they'll suggest for counseling for them. Sometimes they end up, this is where I see labels get placed on our children a lot, where they'll say that they're difficult kids with behavioral issues. They put them in special classes. And so they become labeled, and those labels, once you're labeled, that doesn't go away. It stays with you if you start early like that, getting mental health treatment like that, where it's recommended by a school. It's gonna be tagged on you and continue on. When now your child is trying to enter college, there's a tag, there's a label for you. So that's why we have to be careful. And I'm not saying, parents, if your children need help, don't seek help. But if you're doing it from a school setting, makes it a lot more challenging than you're taking your child to a private person to say, hey, this is going on, we need to address these issues. A lot of times, parents come in and they're like, well, my child this is happening and this is happening. I'm like, okay, so how long has it been happening? Oh, it's been happening for about 5, 6, 7, or 10 years. And I'm like, okay. And so they have this, here's my child, fix-it syndrome. I'm like, we're not doing that. And so I'm like, these children learned behavior in the home. I'm not saying totally always in the home. They learn around them as well. But if you're not paying attention or you're not addressing it, but sometimes these issues will come up. But if you're not addressing it on an earlier stage, it becomes much more challenging to address it later on down the road. So if you're addressing it and saying, you know what, this child is acting out, this child have a bad behavior, this child is lying or stealing, and you're saying, oh, that's so cute. That's so, it's not cute. There's nothing cute about that. So you have to address these issues as it's happening in real time. Okay? Hope that answered your question. Yes. Anyone else? Okay, so next slide. All right. So what does Ellen G. White say about depression? And so she does have some things to say about that. It says that many disease results from mental depression. It says a contented mind, a cheerful spirit, a health to the body, and strength to the soul. Nothing is so fruitful a cause of disease as depression, gloominess, and sadness. And said many of the diseases from which men suffer are the result of mental depression. So she said, mental depression from poorly ventilated rooms, the effect produced by living in closed, ill-vented rooms are these. The system become weak and unhealthy. That's why it's good to go outside and walk. During pandemic, people kept putting on the mask when they went outside in open space, and I couldn't understand that, why they would, like, fresh air. You already have the mask over you and being suffocated. When you're in open space and the fresh air, you're not even able to get that in you, it becomes a problem. And the circulation is depressed. The blood moves very sluggishly through the system because it's not purified and vitalized by the pure, invigorating air of heaven. The mind becomes depressed and gloomy while the whole system is enervated, and fevers and other acute diseases are liable to be generated. That's in Testimonies for the Church, if you want to read more on that. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier is trauma. Trauma is something that has really surfaced tremendously over the past few years. I mean, it's always existed, but I've seen it now, more people talking about it since pandemic. And I said, pandemic, yes, it was a terrible thing. So many people we lost. But out of something negative, I always try to glean that there is something positive to learn. I'm not saying it was a positive situation. I'm just saying it's a positive situation to learn. So people were able to realize that their family dynamics was not healthy. Their relationship was not healthy because they couldn't run. Where were they going to? They couldn't go anywhere, right? And so we have something that's called secondary trauma. And I'm bringing that up because it says people who have been traumatized themselves, like disturbing description of traumatic events by a survivor or other afflicting cruelty on one another. Symptoms of secondary trauma can be incurred when an individual exposed to people trauma and similar to those of PTSD. So, like 9/11, you saw that. You kept listening to things over and over it. What do you think it's doing in your mind every time you keep hearing it? You have heard it 2 or 3 or 4 times, and you sit and you listen to it again, the whole story over and over and over again. Do you think that's a healthy thing? I see people shaking their head. No, it isn't. Okay? So, secondary trauma is common also in various professionals, like myself, thankful I didn't go through it, who work with people who have experienced trauma. So, like a professional, like watching someone experience trauma, including physicians, psychotherapists, human service workers, and first responders, and there was many. The term vicarious traumatization and secondary traumatization stress are often used interchangeable if you hear that. So I'm going to give you an example of those, okay? Let's break that down a little bit. So you have sexual assault, right? That's a traumatic stress, like you hear about someone being sexually assaulted on TV or someone you know. Physical assault, child abuse or neglect, right? Someone who had a motor vehicle accident can be traumatizing. A natural disaster, how many times have we heard that? How many times have we heard about earthquake here and earthquake there, and it can be quite traumatic and quite bothersome. Last week I was in Jamaica for the women's retreat a week ago, and I came back on Monday. And as I was at the airport, my phone is going off, my text is going off. Someone that was at the retreat was in Kingston talking about that they were at the airport and the building went to the left and it went to the right, and people were screaming and crying and all this stuff because there was an earthquake, I think it was 5.4, 5.5. I didn't feel it. Maybe because we were en route to the airport and in the car moving already, so I didn't feel it. But it was like, wow, okay. I mean, I heard it, and it was like, for me, it didn't really sink in. And then I was like, oh, wow, okay. My niece, who lives in Kingston, had come to the retreat with me. So I called her immediately and just to check to see if she was okay. And I couldn't reach her. All the lines were busy and whatnot. And I said a prayer, and I said, Lord, it's in your hands, and got on the plane, But these things sometimes can be very traumatic, hearing about these things. You're always hearing some places having, I'm sure as I'm speaking somewhere is having something going on. So that can be traumatizing. And you have terrorist attacks. We hear about those things happening. You want to say something? Yes. Yes.
Wondering, I said, what can be done to help these children? Because they are the one that is feeling it more.
Yes. So your question is, what can be done? So the first thing is what I mentioned before. Stop letting them watch it so much is the first thing. You can sit and talk to them about that, try to process it with them, and find out, okay, do you have any concerns? Entertain their questions. Don't shut them down, but don't allow them to keep watching the same thing over and over again, because it's like a re-trauma over and over again. So you want to process it. You want to talk about it. You want to see what the fears are they may have, and talk through with that, because as adults, do we not have our own fears? So can you imagine for a child who's not able to talk about it, who they're talking with? They're talking with the other little kids that they're making up stuff in their head because they don't know what to think and how to process it. So the first thing we have to do really is to stop, even as adults. Don't keep watching the same thing when you've already heard the news, okay? There's nothing you can do about it, okay? You can pray, but you can't do anything about it. And listen to it is not beneficial, it's not helpful. But also, especially with the kids, talk about it, process it with them. See what's going on in their head, what that means for them. What are their fears? What are their concerns? Are they fearful that something's going to happen here in New York or wherever they may live? What are their fears? So those are the things I would start at basic and see what's going on and talk to them about that. Then you have people who you hear about torture, right? And you hear about violent or gruesome deaths. You hear near-death experiences. You hear about combat or war atrocities, school shootings. And so we know on a biblical side of it that it talks about in Revelation that when we hear about all these things, what we're supposed to do? Can you look up? There you go, of course, redemption court 9. Right, that means that God's soon coming. That's hope. To me, that's hope. God's soon coming is near. And so that, to me, should instill some kind of hope that this is not but for a season, okay? And if we're embracing this season in hope, that is hope, that this is not going to last forever, okay? All right, let's move on. All right, so, okay, I'm a little behind here. Okay. All right, so the impact of trauma, as I mentioned before, for some professionals may experience a significant change in their own morals and beliefs because of listening to trauma survivors' story. And you have the PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, that arise or delay, response sometimes to stressful events, okay? All right, we won't really focus on that too much. Let's move on because there's a lot of material to cover. So in the beginning, if we can go back to a man when the hand of the Creator perfect his organization in beautiful form, right? He stood before God in the strength of perfect manhood. All the organs of faculty of his being was equally developed and harmoniously balanced, as E.G. White saying, sin entered and the depravity of man has set in. Mankind has succumbed to living to eat rather than eating to live. And so we're going to talk about how food impacts us, our mood, okay? All right, so. Okay. It's not moving now. Yeah, oh, I had it upside down, okay. All right. So one of the areas in which mankind have debased themselves is through appetite, right? Studies have shown that the food we eat impact our mood. There is a strong correlation between appetite and man's temperament. Would people agree with that? Yes? What are your thoughts? Anyone? Yes?
I'm wondering what kind of food really puts you in a good mood and what kind of food puts you in a bad mood.
Okay, so what do you think? Yes, sir.
You know, God talks about the land of milk and honey,
Mm-hmm.
and that is one of our great weakness. You know, we love fat and we love sweet, and they put us in a good mood.
Right. Well, what does it do for the body?
Well, the sugar goes directly to the pleasure center of the brain quickly, and so it releases all of our inhibitions.
Right.
And fat,
Right.
well, it goes all over.
Right.
So
Right. And studies have shown, yes, well said. So studies have also shown that what does sugar do to you? Is sugar toxic? Or it feels good, it tastes good, right? But what does it really do for you? What's that, Pastor? That too. Makes you gain weight. But they said, I've been reading a lot of stuff because I love to read, and I'm always trying to read up on different things in my profession, that cancer, if you eliminate sugar from your diet and you have cancer, and among some other things to do, and you change your diet, you can actually reverse cancer, okay? Chemotherapy and treatments, I'm not saying not to do it. That's a personal choice with you and your doctor and your family. However, I've known people, I've heard of people and known people that have been able to do that with just changing their diet. If those cells don't have the sugar to feed off of, what are they feeding off of? The good food, right? The live food. And what is live food? Food that's not cooked. Because once you've cooked the food, it's dead. I'm sure you have a health ministry leader. that you guys have had some training or seminars and presentations on that. And Dr. Robles, who is my childhood, high school childhood friend and goes here as well, I'm sure she's done some things on that because she's part of the health ministry with Northeastern. So, these are some things that if we were to just change our diet and eat the way that the Bible tells us to eat. No, and I'm not saying it's easy because it's my challenge too. Sometimes it's been a challenge, but we have to keep trying and keep doing it every single day, right? Okay. I think somehow I'm going backwards. Let's see here. What am I doing? Okay. All right. And so we need to be able to do some things differently. So if we're to, like, complex carbohydrate, because someone asks what to eat, what can you eat, what can you do? So I'm going to give you a little bit of tidbit, but I'm just giving you enough that I want to whet your appetite, and I want you to go out there and study. The Bible says to study and show yourself approved. Most people think, oh, that means I need to study the Bible and so that I will know and understand the Bible. But study to show yourself approved. It's not just about the Bible. It's about this too, is it not? You have to study and show yourself approved that you can find out information that's going to help you, whether it be in your nutrition, diet, your mental health. You're studying to show yourself approved. It's not just a saying for learning or reading the scriptures and knowing how to witness to people. It's also those other things, because witnessing is not just Bible, it's the way you live, right? We have, again, from the beginning, I said, we have the health message. What are we doing with it? We throw it away. You're right, sis, you're right.
Or
so,
other people profess their health message, and then we think that they stole it from us. No, it's there for everyone.
they study to show themselves approved.
Everyone.
And they're using it and capitalizing on it and helping people in the process, right? Well, we don't even have something here in New York, but I'm not even going to go there. We're going to leave that alone because that's like a Pandora box, so I'm going to leave it. So complex carbohydrate can be found in many forms. Whole grains and starchy foods such as pasta, potato, all fall in this category, as do fruits and vegetables. So you have folic acid, which can be found in spinach, orange juice, helps to decrease depression, as depression can cause insomnia. Increasing folic acid would also aid in getting better sleep. So just like that, we see something that can help with changing our mood, right? Okay, so although some things are not good for us, like the next picture I'm going to show you is, I keep going backwards. Okay, down here. Okay, so like this, avocado. They say avocado is like fat, but it's good fat, right? So, if we study, then what do? We show ourselves approved to know that although some people say that it's not because it's fat, but it's good fat. Okay? So you're right. So everything is in temperance, right? We know that word. We have to do things in temperance, right? Being temperate about it, right? And so many people will eliminate fat from their diet entirely, but this can increase the chance of depression. There are certain essential fats that promote the absorption of nutrients into cell and allow waste to escape these cells. When the natural cleansing does not take place, depression increases. These essential fats can be found in nuts, seeds, oily fish such as tuna, and other such as olive. Where did we hear about nuts and seeds and in the Bible? Exactly, in the Bible. Right, exactly.
I she would not eat anything. All she want is a little package of yogurt, no cottage cheese, and a little milk. And she said she didn't have a dime. She was lying. She had money to kill. So she got sick now, and she went to the hospital. When she went there, the doctor they told her, oh, your body need nutrition. She said, but I eat nutrition every day. I eat some yogurt and drink some water and whatever not. And eventually she knew that it reached so bad she was going. So this girl was taking care of her. And she tell the girl, she said, go to the house right now. There's a big package underneath the bed. Bring it to me. Don't you dare open it. So the girl bring it to her. That she wouldn't even pay the girl nothing much. And when the girl bring it to her, the whole of the money was in there, the big bag like, and it practically turned powder. And that woman was lying that she didn't have a nickel to buy food. And see,
Yeah, so as you see that, eating nuts and fruits and it's just a proper combination of it. Again, that's studied to show yourself approved, insert right here. And so these are some of the things that we need to do and learn. And our churches, a lot of churches, as this church, and I know my church does that, where they have teaching on that and what food combinations and different things. And again, you learn a lot of these things. We live in a world that we live in an internet, we live in virtual world. There is anything that you need to find can be found. And so there's no excuse for someone to say, well, I don't know, right? So you also have complex carbohydrates that increase the release of the serotonin, which has an entirely different purpose. Serotonin alleviates depression, calms your nerves, and induces sleep. A snack of complex carbohydrates in the evening will enable you to get a more restful sleep. They cause your body to release insulin. The insulin release cleans your blood of all amino acid except tryptophan. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. Thank you. Then converts to the neurotransmitter serotonin, which creates a sense of peace within your mind. Serotonin also reduce your appetite and help reduce physical pain. So these are some things that can be done in order to help you on your journey with your mental health. And so I don't know if everyone have heard of Dr. Gray. He is a phenomenal author, and he wrote a book on the food, how food impacts your mood and your emotional well-being. And so he talks about a healthy relationship with food is similar to a healthy relationship with life. I'm going to read that again. A healthy relationship with food is similar to a healthy relationship with life. What does that mean to you? Okay. And anyone else? Right. So if you have a healthy relationship with food, it says you'll have a healthy relationship with life. Anyone else? Thank you. Want to comment on that?
So what would be, so we're thinking healthy. So oftentimes when we think of what's good, we shun what's not good. What is not good? What is not a good relationship with food?
So someone who is an emotional eater, okay, for example, and so if you're an emotional eater, what are you going to do? You're going to eat your emotions, right? And so if you're eating your emotions, you're constantly eating because that's a comfort for you. And so it becomes a crutch because every time that you feel emotional, that's your go-to. Okay, that's not healthy. Now, I must say that there are individuals who have gone through, say, rape, abuse, in particular rape, I find, who've been sexually assaulted, that sometimes they do use that as a crutch because they don't want to be seen. That's their way. If I pack on this weight, that won't happen to me again. No one will want to be attractive to me, to want to come to me, and that's a psychological way of them dealing or cope. Not healthy, but that's their way of coping and dealing with it. But in general, though, if you're eating your emotions, it's going to show. It's going to show not just physically, but it's going to play out in your health. You're going to end up with a lot of health issues. Okay? And so, so it's important, and I know, Sylvia, you keep mentioning about what are some of the things. So eating like dark green leafy vegetables are good for you, okay? Your food impact your brain structure and your mood. And do you know that your gut and brain are connected? And a lot of issues that you have starts in your gut. And so there's a lot of people walking around with gut issues. So I work for an insurance company during the day, and I get a chance to see like a lot of the diagnoses, and it's piqued my interest. So a lot of times I'm looking and seeing, okay, I'm seeing a pattern and a trend here. So I start looking and reading the diagnoses and what they're going in, and I'm like, everybody's have gut issues. Oh my goodness. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. But then they're like on 20 different medication because they're taking one medication to help this medication. That medication impacts them, so they're taking something else to come back. So it's like a perpetual cycle. And so not only are they eating, their gut issues and eating their emotion, but it's like food. They say let food become your medicine, or the medicine will be your food. The medicine is their food. Okay? And so the gut is often referred to as the second brain. Okay? And so a joyful spirit sustains our health and protects us from disease, right? You've heard that. I love Proverbs because it tells us, it's like a template of things, of just knowledge and wisdom of what we need to do and how we should live our life. I love Proverbs. So Proverbs 17:22 says, a merry heart doeth good like medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones. Have you ever seen someone that is ill, but their spirit is so like, they're so bubbly and pleasant, and then you meet someone who is ill, and they're mean and crotchety and just like attitude, and they're just nasty, and they're like the whole world, they're mad with the whole world? So that makes a difference, how you look at things. And I know, Cindy, Sylvia, you read my bio earlier, and I talked about, if you change your mindset, you change your outcome. And so sometimes when you're in situation, you have to change how you're looking at things. And I'm saying this out loud, but I'm not saying it I'm saying for myself as well, because I'm human too. I'm a therapist, but I'm human too, first. And so there are times where I felt like, and I said, wait, stop, get a hold of yourself, Monica, gotta talk to self, and say, you have to change how you're thinking. You gotta get out of this place that you're in and think of things differently. Look at what else you can do. I know my mom is watching this, and she's probably saying, amen, daughter. So, these are some things that you have to really think about in your head, because it's going to change how you do things. So, so this statement about those broken spirit, dried bones is a precise description of what happens when physiologically, when there has been a breaking of the human spirit through abuse. When a person's spirit is broken, the bone marrow capacity to produce bone marrow is diminished. There's a study that was done by Dr. Diana Pappas that revealed that emotional abuse is a factor in the depletion of the production of red blood cells. The Bible clarified that the life of the flesh is in the blood, Leviticus 17:11. The blood is reduced in the marrow of the bone. The question is, how many people believe your emotion can make you sick? Everybody's agreeing with that? Okay. So there's a story that I've read once before I'm going to share. And the story is told about a woman that was plagued by abuse from the age of 3 until age of 30. The extreme abuse had resulted in her having a desire to die. After several unsuccessful suicide attempts, she decided that she would kill herself slowly by overeating. Shortly thereafter, she developed lupus, an autoimmune disease by which the body gradually destroyed itself. Her death wish was manifested physically. That's what I'm saying. As a man thinketh, if you don't change your thinking, this is what's going to happen. You're going to manifest things out. We will so we're going to discuss later on some coping skills that we can do for mental health issues. Okay, so let's move on. I was hoping that we will have some youth here and children, but that's okay. We can still talk a little bit about that. Bring this slide up to date. Okay, so with children, I want to talk about for kids when kids are trying to cope with things. We're going to probably go on with that coping part. So how adults respond to trauma can strongly influence how children and adolescents react to trauma. You agree? Because what does children do? They imitate life. They imitate the environment they're in. So if they see the adults are not coping, how are they going to respond? What are they going to do? The same thing. So we're teaching children learned behaviors of what our fears and what we don't do. We teach them by our action. It's not always what we're saying, it's what we're doing. And so when caregivers and family members take steps to support their own ability to cope, they can provide better care for others. Having a discussion with your teen or your child, allowing them to talk, cry, paying attention to sudden changes in behavior, speech, and language use. Maintain routines. And so someone come to you and say, oh, your child is such and such. Don't say, oh, no, my child wouldn't do such and such. Investigate. Check it out. Because that child might not be showing you that behavior, but they may be exhibiting outside of where you are. So check it out. It doesn't hurt to check it out and not just, get offended and like, oh, no, my child wouldn't do that. Check it out. It's worth it to at least see what's going on and be able to deal and address it. Remain calm and provide a safe and supportive environment. So some of the things we talked about earlier about the traumas and when they see things and the repetitiveness on TV is, us not being reactive to some of these things. I'm not saying don't have a reaction to it, but don't be reactive where you're like, oh my gosh, and the kids are going to do the same thing. I see a hand, yes.
Good evening. Here's something I've been reading up on. I've noticed. Have you heard of, if you've studied narcissism? Because lots of behaviors that we're seeing in our society now is a factor of narcissism. Traumas that people have suffered from a youth and they grow up and they cherish those, or they internalize it, and then it's like an outburst, and many people are suffering. Especially some innocent men and women, they both suffer. We are both, almost every family, we have some, traits of narcissism in almost every family. It might not be like big, like on the news then. Some of them made the news, but there are things happening for real. It's good to talk about it.
So that's a whole presentation by itself. In case anyone didn't hear, about someone who's narcissistic. And so narcissistic is not prevalent, I don't think, in every family, but it's a personality disorder. And so it depends on what kind of family dynamics and environment that you're living in that might produce someone who's narcissistic, or maybe they're not getting something from the family and they've had to get into that role or that way of doing things to be seen or heard, or to, like, hello, I'm here, that kind of way. And so there's so many different things, and as I said, too much to unpack at this moment. So yes, but thank you for your input. Okay, and so Okay, so I mentioned before, limit the repetitiveness of watching news report of a traumatic event is one of the things to help children cope in.
That
And
could
even,
also impact adults as well.
I was just going to say that as well as adults, yes.
Yeah, because during the
Yes.
pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you one thing, seeing the number of people who lost their lives
Mm-hmm.
increase bothered me.
Yeah.
Knowing that number was not a true factor of how many actually died
Mm-hmm. Right.
from COVID-19, because there's people who died in their homes
Right. Right.
that were not counted.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was
Right.
no way of saying
Right.
how they died.
Mm-hmm.
So that number was in fact a lowball number.
Right.
So we know it's in excess of that. That
Right.
number alone, I said,
Mhm.
I can't believe that these are the number of people who are dying on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
just wiped away.
And then some of those, what I saw, because that piqued my curiosity, working from home, and I work with where I have to outreach to the hospitals when my clients go into the hospital. I have to get diagnoses. It's a lot of underlying ailments that they're dealing with that might have triggered off their immune system, and that it may not have truly have been because of COVID, but because of the underlying issues. And so, yeah, so one of the things for me that I did, I stopped watching the news because I already know that it exists. Why do I have to keep hearing it every day? So for me, my way of dealing with it, because at that time I was in full blown, I worked during the day, and in the evening time I see my own clients, I have my own private practice. So I just stopped watching the news altogether because I didn't need to hear it, because I was hearing it from my clients that were calling me and saying their loved one died and they're going through grief and loss. And so it's like I was okay not watching the news, and not, if something international, every now and then I'll watch that. Other than that, for me, it was my self-preservation, and I chose not to do it. So it's adults as well, not just children, absolutely. So some of the things not to do for children, and I highlight this because a lot of times in presentation about these type of subject, we kind of leave out the children, and they're my soft spot. So don't expect children and adolescents to be brave or tough. Don't tell them, oh, just tough it out. Don't make them discuss the event before they're ready. Just because we want to talk about it don't mean that they're ready to talk about it or hear about it. Don't get angry if they show strong emotions. Validate their emotions. Don't get upset if they begin bedwetting, acting out, or thumb sucking. These may be some behaviors in certain age children that they've reverted back to because it's soothing for them to do. Just like as adults, we eat to comfort ourselves. They find means as a way to soothe themselves, and the thumb sucking or sometimes acting out because they need that attention that you're not giving them are ways for them to cope with things. Not healthy, but that's ways of coping. Don't make promises such as you will be okay tomorrow, or you will go home soon, or this person will be home from the hospital soon. You don't know that. You don't. And then if the person died, then what? Now, they don't believe anything that you say anymore. You now promised them something that you couldn't deliver. So just be careful on those type of things. Okay. All right. Okay. So some of the things, and I'm going to wind down. I don't want to keep you guys too long. Some of the things that I want you to keep in mind is mindfulness. There are two things. For me this year, I said there are two things that I decided. I made a choice that I was going to do: mindfulness and intentionality. Anyone have heard those two terms before? Yes, I see some head shaking. Okay, so mindfulness basically has three components: intention, attention, and attitude. What did I say?
Intention, attention, and attitude.
Okay. So, with that, intention guides where you place your attention, right? And the attitude or mindset you hold as you meet the moments of your day. When moments of choice arise in the day, Stay connected to your center. What does that mean to you? Anyone? Intention guides where you place your attention, an attitude or mindset you hold as you meet the moments in your day. When moments of choice arise in a day, stay connected to your center.
You have a condition and you determine what the outcome is going to be. And you focus on that outcome, and that is where you put your attention.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes.
Living in the moment, not to go ahead like I'm worrying about tomorrow or next, what will happen. I mean, we're focused on what is happening now.
So that's more intentional, and we're going to talk about that. But when mindfulness start would be in the present and
Yes,
be
in the
mindful
present.
of what's going on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In the present.
Yes. Okay, great. So both a holistic approach to mindfulness and an approach that is linked with cognitive behaviorism can help people learn how to maintain mental focus in the present moment. So mindfulness is being present in this moment. Okay, sometimes you have people where they are having dinner and they're watching TV and they're doing all these different things, but they're not mindful of their eating. And if you're eating and watching TV and something's upsetting, or something that you're hearing about these crimes and whatnot, what is that going to do to your stomach and your digestive system, right? When you're trying to eat and you're hearing all this negativity around you, is that going to aid your digestion, create gut issues? Yeah. And so, and makes you even more emotional with that, which mixing the emotional piece while you're trying to eat is never a good combination. It doesn't work, okay? And so, so I was saying that both a holistic approach to mindfulness and an approach that is linked with cognitive behaviorism can help people learn how to maintain mental focus in the present moment, to change their thoughts and avoid rumination. I mean, repeating things over and over in your head, and to develop tolerance for unpleasant feelings and thoughts. Okay, so that's important. So mindfulness is a way of paying attention to the present moment, as I stated, using techniques like meditation, breathing, yoga. I know people have their different feelings about yoga, but sometimes you have to use things and make it what you want it to be for you. You know, yoga sometimes have chanting, but it also has some very other good things that can be helpful. And so it helps us become more aware of our thoughts and feelings, so that instead of being overwhelmed by them, we're better able to manage them. So it doesn't work when your thoughts are all over the place because this is going on and that's going on. You're in system overload in your brain. And what happens when emotionally when your brain is in overload? What happens? I need her to say that out loud. You can be depressed, yes. Depression, yes. Anyone else? Anxiety, right? That's the next big thing. Agitated, yes. And so that's never good for you or for your overall emotional well-being.
I think you also freeze sometimes. You get so overwhelmed
Yeah.
by the pressures of
Right,
everything
right.
that's happening. You don't go forward, so you stay frozen.
Right.
You're stuck.
Right.
You know, that kind of
Yes.
thing.
And it actually prevents you from enjoying the moment. Being in the moment and enjoying the moment that you're in, it just passes you by because you're busy, your mind is all over the place. And so the moments that's precious, that can never be redone, like moments with your family, with your friends, with your church family, events that's happening, you miss them because your brain is just going all over the place and you're not in the here and now, okay? And so we have intentionality. So being intentional, let me bring the slide forward. Intentionality. Intentionality, being intentional means making deliberate choices to reflect what is most important to us. So mindfulness is being in the here and now, and intentionality is making deliberate choices to reflect what is most important to us. Becoming intentional can help us maintain a positive mindset, reach goals, experience more clarity, and be more present. And so these work hand in hand, mindfulness and intentionality. It can also increase our focus and commitment and bring more purpose and meaning to our lives. Yes, sir.
Sometimes we stay in the moment too much because the moment passes and become the past.
Right.
And so the decisions that we're making now for now, if we become stuck on them, then it creates a problem for the
Right.
future. So we
Right.
have to move.
Right. And this is where intentionality comes in, and you got to use them both in tandem at the same time, right? So thank you for that. Very good point. Okay, so how to show intentionality. So I'm going to give you some examples. Here are a few simple ways to learn how to be intentional and create practices that can help you reach your goal. Set measurable goals, things that you know that you can actually do, not something that's far beyond your reach. Like, I'm going to lose 30 pounds in 30 days. That's not happening, okay? So you can say, I'm going to lose 15 pounds in 3 months or 4 months, and that's more. Because if you try to do a quick, fast thing, all that's going to happen is it's going to come back on again. Like, it's not sustainable, okay? Establish a daily routine. And so by doing things intentionally, and setting out a schedule for yourself and said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start my day. I'm going to do meditation. I'm going to do my devotion. I'm going to walk. And then I'm going to make breakfast. You're setting out a routine of things that you're going to do. Strengthen your relationships, okay? And so those are things that sometimes we take for granted, do we not? We take for granted that, our family, our friends, our loved ones are always going to be there. And, of course, pandemic has showed us that it's not, and it has not. And so being intentional about your relationship with others, people that are important in your life, making a vision board, and that's basically just having a board where you have different things that you want to do, just kind of on there so that kind of remind and nudge yourself of where you're going.
That
Okay?
would be a good thing to do for the coming year.
Yes.
I mean, you could start it now.
Yes.
But
Absolutely.
I think that would be a great
Yes.
project for us to do.
Yes.
Individuals doing
Absolutely.
that and then taking a picture of that and showing and sharing it with others
Right.
to make it yourself accountable
Exactly.
to other people
Exactly.
who share in
Right.
your goals. So
Right.
they'll try to help you get to
Right.
your goal.
Yes.
Right? So that
Right.
would be a
That
good
sounds
idea.
like a church project.
Yeah, that would sound,
You
sounds
know,
like a great
you can
project.
do that. Have
Yeah.
a partner, accountability partner.
Yes.
And then midway say, where are we now?
Where are we now?
Going? What have we not done that
Right.
we need to do or to start doing? And where have you lacked off at,
Right.
and what you need to do
And
differently?
we have a shared goal. Everyone
Exactly.
has individual goals,
Right,
but then you can have
right,
a shared goal
right,
that you make each other
Right.
accountable.
And when you have someone that's nudging and pushing you along, that really makes a difference. Okay, yes, support. Declutter your space makes a difference, because if you're not decluttering your space, your brain is going to react the same way. All it's seen is that in your environment. I have dealt with individuals who were hoarders, and I could see it play out in their lives, in their professional life, and I was like, wow, okay. And it was a challenge for them to stay on task with things, and we had to go like little bit of baby steps, like just like a quarter of an inch. We couldn't even make like too much of a long term. When I realized that was not happening, we had to go back to the drawing board and just set some really realistic goals. Make deliberate spending choices, right? Finances, looking to see what you can do, what is doable, what is not. Living within your means, right? Don't waste time, okay? We spend time working, we spend time, eating, sleeping, but there's still 24 hours in a day. you still can utilize those times in effective, productive ways, right? And so we have to learn not to waste time. Monitor your mental health. Do things that is going to help you to be able to stay healthy for yourself first of all, and then also for your loved ones as well.
That is, would you say, Sister Monica?
Mm-hmm.
Say healthy for yourselves. I think women, do for others. right?
Yes.
You can correct me if if you think that this is not a factual or if you've seen this. But I'm thinking that women, for the most part, are always doing for others and then doing for themselves less so. And then
Right.
they're commended for being such a great person, always doing for others, but then they're not really taking time for that mindfulness,
Right.
that intentionality,
Exactly.
that needs to be done, and taking care of themselves
Right.
to their own detriment,
Right.
and that's not a good thing.
Yes, that's
right?
not good because then they end up getting sick. And if you're not taking care of yourself, I tell caregivers, because a lot of times I ask caregivers, and a lot of people, I guess, don't ask them. They're like, no one ever asks us that. I said, but you're important too. I said, because if you're not well for yourself, how could you be well for the person you're taking care of? And they're like, yeah, you're right. I said, so do something about it. Make little changes. Go out if you have the person have an aide or someone else that can come in and fit in. Go do something. Go get your hair done. Go, whatever it is. Go shopping. Whatever it is that you're able to do, take some time for yourself to refuel your energy and refuel yourself. I used to always tell my clients when they would tell me, oh, you're going on vacation. I'm like, yeah, I'm going on vacation. They're like, but we need you. I said, to understand that, but vacation is my therapy. So I travel a lot. And so that's the way I refuel myself, is by going on vacation, being intentional about the things that I do, taking time for me so that I can be the best version of me, but also for my family and my friends and my loved ones. So it's important for us to be very intentional and mindful about that. Okay. So intentional choices are deliberate and purposeful decisions. This is what everybody has been saying. Living intentionally means thinking ahead and making choices based on your personal values, beliefs, and goals. People who live with intention try not to act on impulse, but instead think ahead and choose things that affect their lives positively. You had mentioned that as well, sir, earlier in a different way, but yes. Okay, so these are some things that we need to make sure that we show up and do. Okay, so we're coming to an end, and so I just want to remind individuals that, we hear a lot. I hear it. I've heard it over the years growing up in the church that we think that people say, you should. It's a spiritual problem if you're going through this, or just pray, sister, just pray, just brother, and that we can just pray our problems away without addressing what's going on. Prayer is awesome, and in my head, I'm praying all the time in my head, even if I'm not like sitting down somewhere to pray. I do that, but I'm praying in my head. Sometimes I'm walking and praying. So praying is very important, and we should do that. And I don't discount it at all. But the Bible tells us that faith without works is dead, right? And so sometimes we would rather suffer in silence than dealing with the issues in our life, right? And life, as I mentioned before, is about choices, right? So you have to think about it. What will your choice be? Moving forward, taking action and doing some things to address sickness, whether physical or mentally, making that choice to seek therapy. If you're not able to do it, if you're not able to talk to someone, you don't feel that you can talk to someone, it feels too personal, you don't feel like you're going to be judged, seek help, okay? And so God has some Bible verses I just want to remind you guys. You've probably heard them before. Here, going backwards again. Let's see here. So some of them is in Isaiah 41:10. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And then Psalms 91, 1-2, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. And verse 2, I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. And then finally in John 16:33, I have said these things to you that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Right? So actually, the final one is John 3:12, 1 and 2. Chapter 1, 2, verse 2. Beloved, I wish for you all things that you may prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospered. So God wants us to prosper, not just physically, not just spiritual. We get stuck sometimes thinking that everything is just spiritual, but it's not. We're not just one component. We're mind, body, soul. And so when we start looking at our life that way and start thinking in that realm, we will start making better choices on things to help ourselves so that in this season that we're in, whether it's holiday, we're going in where we have people in the church being intentful and finding out who are the people who are single, the people that don't have family, they might have family outside of New York, and make some provisions or invite them to individual families, inviting others and bringing them in so that they won't have to go through that season and they can embrace the season in hope and not in despair or feeling like I just want to get through this and get to January because then I have to deal with the holiday anymore. So be intentional, be mindful so that you're helping others, you're helping yourself with your mental health issues so that you can be able to function better, okay? And who doesn't want to be able to function better so that you can show up for yourself and other people in your space? I thank everyone that has participated. Thank you, Sylvie, for inviting me, and Pastor Guy for having me here at your church. And I hope that everyone has gleaned something for this presentation.
Thank you, Sister Monica. That was a wealth of information. Yes, something that you can take for yourself and certainly something that you can share with others. It's important for us to, once we learn something new and then we put into practice, that we share, because that's all about service. And so I want to thank you for your expertise in taking the time out to share these nuggets of information that I think are manageable. We can do a little bit at a time and really be on an upward slope when it comes to our mental health and our capacity to observe when things are not going right and to make changes accordingly. Thank you. I think that there were some great suggestions about what we can do as a church moving forward and really strengthening our community in really keeping each other accountable on new things that we can do. The new year is just right around the corner, but why do we have to wait until then to do that? We can start today. Like Sister Monica said, call someone during this season, let them know that they're loved and that you care and that you're making provisions for them during this time if they don't have family, etc., to share at this time. That would be wonderful for us to show a sense of community and love and to open up your home to others. That would be just wonderful. And when you do so, please let someone know the experience that you had, the difference of that family, community, by sharing your table. That would be wonderful. So I want to thank you all for being here today. Please give me some feedback as to how the Health Ministries Department is doing, and if you'd like to be part of our group, we're just increasing the numbers of all of those who would be associated with the Health Ministries Department, not only other departments, but individuals as well. So please come see me or the other health ministry associates, I like to call them, and we will welcome you and your expertise and have your skills be used for our department. At this time, are there any closing remarks, Pastor, do you have on this? Absolutely, absolutely. We would love to have you back again. And thank you for our AV department for allowing us to conduct this presentation in such a professional way. Can we all stand as we are dismissed? We thank the Lord for such a beautiful Sabbath day and ending it on such a